Welcome to the Smart CEO Smart Chat. I am Kyra Hardwick, and I am thrilled to be here with you. Thanks for tuning in. We hope that this episode will be an incredible influence on the way that you do the work that you do every day. So whether you're a smart CEO, working from home, working from the office, simply navigating your life and family, whatever it is, today's the day you made a great decision to tune into our podcast and get this smart talk. So let's dig in.
Welcome back to yet another episode of the Smart Talk podcast. I am today's host, Alena Conley, and I am head of learning and impact here at the Kyra Company. And I am so excited to be joined by one of our very own cohort members from our latest Charlotte cohort, Miss Danielle Riley. Welcome to the show, Danielle.
Hello, everyone.
So we're just going to jump right in. We've had the opportunity to hear from tons of entrepreneurs at this point on this show. And what I love most is really having the opportunity to hear the uniqueness of everyone's journey. We know that being a small business owner definitely isn't for everyone. You, in particular, are in the healthcare field combined with all of the stress of being a business owner. So you kind of have a double whammy there. And so I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you got here and why you decided that this was the path for you.
Thank you so much for the question and for the platform. So if I really think about it, it goes all the way back to when I first became a nurse over 2 decades ago. And most nurses kind of stick in 1 or 2 different specialty areas. But I found myself, as I went through my nursing career, loving to switch to different specialty areas. So over the course of that 2-decade career, I've worked in almost a dozen subspecialties of nursing, which is highly unusual. And at the time, I just thought, I just love to learn. And when I master one area, I like to move to another one and learn that. But thinking back on it, in hindsight, it was all part of God's journey. So in June of 2020, when COVID shut the world down, I was working as a chief nursing officer for a home care company here in Houston, actually the largest home care company here in Houston. And I'd gotten to a point where I was so frustrated with the corporate model of home care and how I felt disenfranchising families from what they really needed. And I thought that it was attainable. At the same time, you can still have a profit, your team members can be happy, and your families can be taken care of. And I had just reached a boiling point. And one day I just said, that's it. So Concierge Clinicians of Houston came into being 90 days within giving notice to that job. And I just said, I can do it better. This can be done better. And with a focus on people. And so that's what birthed Concierge Clinicians of Houston. And that whole journey of working all these different specialties really came in handy, having a home care company, because we have patients with various needs. And so that's why I said that was all kind of part of my journey to get to where I was today. So I didn't come into this thinking I'm going to be an entrepreneur all along.
Wow. And then to launch it during COVID is like a whole nother beast. We'll get to that. But let's go back even further, right? Like when we think about the way our country is set up in terms of how we decide what we're going to grow up to be. Many of us at 16, 17 in high school are having to think about, okay, when I'm applying to colleges, I'm applying based on my interests and who I think I want to be when I grow up. And so when you think about the things that were going through your mind in your earlier years or your formative years and going into the field of nursing, what were the things that you think led to you wanting to choose that career path?
My why. And it's funny because I didn't have a name for it back then, but going through the cohort and aligning things with your why. What type of lifestyle do you want to live? What does that look like for you? So I knew very early on, I wanted something that could support family life, that I could make a decent amount of money. I loved working with people. I was always in a service-based job, even from a teenager. So I knew I wanted to be working with people, helping people in some way. I wanted it to be challenging and give me an opportunity to navigate through different specialties. And so when I thought about it, nursing. My aunt was a nurse, and I said, that kind of checks all the boxes. I love to travel. I want to have a job that gave me time off. And so nursing checked all the boxes. And then science was my favorite subject.
Yeah. Now, I'm a huge fan of all the Grey's Anatomy type shows. I think the most popular one now is The Pit, right? And so I think that the medical field is full of opportunity in terms of for you to learn, but you have people's lives in your hand. I even will share my personal experience. When having my children, I barely saw my doctor. I was mostly there with my nurses. And so my nurses essentially I think I wrote a blog post a couple of years ago that was like, one bad nurse, one bad teacher can change your life, right? And that happened to be the case for me. You also can have one good nurse, which on my third pregnancy changed the trajectory of me healing from that first experience. And that is a lot of weight and a lot of pressure. How do you find yourself decompressing, especially now that you within your practice are dealing with the families who are having to really think through end of term or things that they didn't necessarily prepare for in terms of their health? So how do you balance the weight of what that comes with?
The biggest thing to keep in mind is to not take anything personal. That's what we teach our team members, because when we encounter people, they're dealing with some of the most stressful, the scariest instances in their lives. And a lot of times that stress and that tension has to go somewhere. And we're the easiest place for it to land. And so that's what I keep in mind. It's not really directed about me. It's just that internal stress that's coming out. Like, for instance, you might have dementia clients that may have a racist background. Sometimes that comes out and they say things and it just rolls off your head. I just deflect. So I've been called the N word and I'll say, okay, so what are we having for breakfast this morning? Are we having bacon and eggs? And so you just can't take it personal.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, let's talk about this. So we're in the middle of a global pandemic, right? Most of us can't leave our homes. You all are required to leave your homes. And not only do you go out and face what the unknown is, you then decide to start a business. So take me back to 2020 when you said, I can do it better. What did it look like building your business in this crisis? Because oddly enough, the Kyra company was actually founded during, or not necessarily the Kyra company, but the Smart CEO program, originally known as Resurgence, was resurging out of COVID and kind of coming out of this. So I love to hear what was happening with you as well during that time.
I think everybody during COVID took the time to be really reflective and introspective. It really made you think a lot about your mortality, your why, realigning yourself. And in the company that I was with, they were transitioning from a team of it was a very diverse, dynamic team that had built it to a multi-million-dollar force to be reckoned with. And I saw them systematically disenfranchising the Black women, particularly in the company, changing them out. They wanted the image of the company to be a little lighter, whiter. It was just indicative of what I've seen in corporate America, the microaggressions, the double standards. And I just was so frustrated really with that part of it. Yes, I felt like the care that was being delivered to the people, absolutely, we can improve that. But how we treat our people in the culture of a company and a team, I wanted to prove that not only could you be profitable, but you could treat your people very well and your clients could be very happy and satisfied. And I think that after 6 years here at Concierge Clinicians of Houston, I can proudly say I believe we've been able to accomplish that goal. Our turnover is very reflective of that. Our low turnover rates are very reflective of that.
Yeah.
And our client satisfaction. Yeah.
I think that's something that most business owners think about on the back end of things, right? It's kind of, okay, let me start the business. Let me think about the need in the marketplace. And then 5 years later, when they're trying to figure out why I don't have the best talent or why my turnover is high, then they're putting a focus on their people. So what are some of the things that you did internally to kind of create this culture early on?
To make sure that they had equity in what they were doing, the buy-in was really necessary for people to empower them to be able to do their role autonomously, but also to have that input, that feedback, because they're boots on the ground. They're very granular with everything. So making sure that we did have team meetings where people could express what's important for them, what their ideas were, even if we didn't go with them. It's important for people to be able to feel and know that they're heard. We also put a lot of focus on team building. We do that every quarter faithfully. We did virtual reality. We were fighting zombies last time. And team building is so important. Making sure that the pay is fair and equitable and giving them a roadmap for upward trajectory. Because a lot of times you feel like you hit a glass ceiling in a company and they all have the ability to be promoted within.
So I think that one of the things we talk about when it comes to people development is also leadership development, right? Because a lot of times it's two different skill sets. So we may invest time in being really good at what we do. So whether that's sales or marketing or nursing, right? And then suddenly when you're a CEO, it becomes about how do you make other people successful and how do you develop their talent? And so what has it looked like for you to switch from just being really good at your craft to this skill set of leadership and people development?
It really, you sabotage your objectives when you're working too much in the daily operations. And I saw that I was the cog in the wheel. I was the one slowing things up because they had to wait on me for a lot of things. And I believe I went through Kyra's coaching prior to joining Smart CEOs. We engaged her for coaching. And one of the things she said is if they can do it 80% as good as you, let them do it. And so I had to get that out of my mind. Everything doesn't have to be exactly the way I would do it. I just need to set them up with the tools so that they know what the expectations are, the roadmap, how to get there, the performance indicators so that they can see if they're doing a good job or not. And to be available to free up any roadblocks that are preventing them from being able to execute.
Yeah. So being that you kind of worked with the Kyra company and then you came back and applied for the Smart CEO, I would love to hear about your journey going from getting kind of one-on-one personalized coaching to now entering into this more so of an ecosystem. What was that experience like for you?
Oh, there's so much value in both, right? Because I believe that the culture of the company is from the head down. It really starts with you. So I think that the piece of that individual coaching was so important. To have a peer that can help you hold up that mirror of accountability is great. And to transition all of that knowledge that I received through those personal coaching sessions, I think we were engaged like a year. And to take that into the Smart CEO, a lot of people said, "Oh, I gave so much good feedback and advice and this and that." But it was just me regurgitating all the wonderful things I had learned with Kyra leading up to that. And it felt good. It was so affirming. They would come up with an issue in our group sessions. And I was like, yeah, this is my thoughts on that. Da-da. And it seemed to be useful for a lot of people. So I think that iron sharpening iron and being able to tap into that personal is just as important as the group setting. The group setting is wonderful because there's different personalities, but you find that one of the things it affirms is that we all have the same challenges. We all have, whether it's personnel, whether it's money, budgeting, fiscal intelligence on how we run our books and what the numbers mean. And so it's nice to have a community of people where you can be vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we first came in, we had an onboarding or a supplier readiness interview with you to kind of understand your business. And compared to your peers, you were definitely one of the higher earners. You had some really outstanding metrics. And so could you share some of those things with our audience just so they can understand who's on the line and what you've done with the organization?
Just to clarify a little bit more about which particular.
You had some metrics around the success rate of your clinic in Houston and just the differentiator between you and other similar businesses and how you were able to do that.
So I would say in my industry, we do shifts. We take care of, people think of home care, they think home health. So they think the nurse that comes to the house for that visit. that therapist that comes for that visit. We're more helping you through your activities of daily living throughout the day. One of the things that's unique to us is that we have longer shifts. Majority of our clients are full-time clients, which I'm not aware of any other company in Houston that has that base of clientele. So the average client has at least 12 hours, but majority of our clients have 24-hour care, which is not typical in our industry. Our turnover rate, it typically hovers in the 20s to 30%. That may seem high for other industries, but our average industry turnover is 78%. So yeah, that's a huge win. This year, going into after we were leaving our first quarter, we tripled our numbers from last year's first quarter. And it was intentional though. Last year, it was really focusing on making sure the back office is good, our operations, our KPIs, our SOPs, our policies, procedures, making sure that was clean and we were ready for growth so that we wouldn't fumble the ball once we started to be intentional. So this year we brought on our marketing team member and we're out the gate. We're running.
Yeah. So one of the things that we focus on in the cohort, for those of you all who are listening and considering applying for future cohorts, is really scaling the operations side of things, as Danielle just mentioned that she really focused on. So that looks like making sure that she's not that bottleneck, that there are written procedures, but then also that there is a vision for how you go from your first 3 years of success, hitting your first 250 and then your first 500 and then going to scale into not millionaire, but million plus revenue, right? Talk to me about your vision for scaling now that you do have your ops aligned, you have your marketing person. What does that vision look like?
We're actually going to pivot and diversify. So we're going digital. I know that we're boots on the ground, we're in the homes, but unfortunately, majority of Americans can't afford this type of care. It'd be great if they could. Insurance doesn't cover it. Medicare is not going to pay for it. And we want to empower families who want to reduce their risk of complications, reduce the risk of an unplanned hospitalization. If your grandmother had a stroke and now she's got right-sided weakness, she can't dress herself, she can't get out of the bed, you're worried about her getting bed sores. Most people don't know the first thing to do. And the discharge instructions that you get for 15 minutes before you leave the hospital will not prepare you for what that's going to look like when you get home. We're creating courses for our platform to be able to offer that digitally online, practical care tips for families that want to be able to do this for themselves and also other home care companies. In Texas, you're not required to have a clinician on staff. So what I found is a lot of companies don't know how to tackle these clinical questions and how to advise and train their care staff. So we'll have a B2B offer for other companies that want to subscribe to our training program for best practice. And then we'll have a B2C for our families that want to learn how to do this care on their own.
Yeah. Now, I know when you came to the cohort, this was something you were already considering and building the brand of the nurse who knows. But through the 8 weeks, what from the training material within the cohort do you feel gave you more legs to build out this digital product?
I would say just the totality of the program, really. It was just all reinforcing every step of the way, just reinforcing whether we were talking about how we might partner with other folks. Because when I thought about it, there's at least 3 or 4 people in the cohort that can actually help me execute this. So that was big, being able to be in the room with those folks and say, hey, what does this look like if I wanted to build it out like this? And let's get on a discovery call. And so that I would say probably was the most instrumental piece, is already having the talent right there in the room.
Yeah. So a lot of times when people join cohorts, it can feel a little daunting to go to your cohort member and ask for help, right? What do you think made Smart CEO's experience different for you to really build those relationships right in that time?
Like I said, the culture of any institution always comes from the top, has a really wonderful way of having elevation energy, I'll say. Everyone on her team, you included, you guys come with that positive energy, that focus, driving people to want to do their best and be their best, and reminding us to take advantage of the opportunities every step of the way of the people that are right there, the coaches, your cohort members. And a lot of us that have minority backgrounds, I don't know about the other folks, but I didn't come from a family where I could go to my mom and dad and say, hey, can you help me read this spreadsheet? Can you tell me what a profit and loss statement is? Can you tell me how to create a KPI? What do I do if I'm having issues with my... And so we don't have that. But in this cohort, it allows you to be vulnerable in a room of peers to discuss these things and come up with solutions, whether it's with your coach or whether it's with a fellow member.
Absolutely. Now, what I know to be true about a lot of cohort members over many accelerators is that, especially in the beginning, it can feel overwhelming. Some people actually don't finish the cohort because they feel like they're not ready to move through the material, right? And so what do you think was a moment where, maybe to your point earlier, a mirror was held up and you're like, okay, I really have to figure this out, or it kind of kept you up at night because you were like, there is work to be done based on some things that were shared with you?
Yeah, I would say the biggest area that I really had to focus on is shoring up things so that I could really come out of operations. I was already majority out of operations, but what I saw was my team wasn't fully equipped with what they needed to be successful. I think it was a little bit premature. So that it helped me see that I really needed to shore up my SOPs, my KPIs, so that they had a better roadmap of what needed, my policies, my procedures, so that they had a better roadmap, and to edit, to take out things that didn't need to be there, to get down to the meat and potatoes. So it helped me fine tune that. And I'm in such a better position now afterwards than I was going into it.
So what was your process? So we meet on Thursdays for our live cohort. Within the second hour of the cohort, you guys do your breakout sessions, you come out, report, and then you have a workbook, you have post sessions with your cohorts if you choose. What was your process for getting all the material and then actually going to apply it, but then also talking with the team members that needed to execute on those things?
Yeah, so some of us would chat offline, make plans to meet up. I would get consultations or kind of talk to some of my fellow cohort members, get some advice. But mine was implementation. So for me, once I got the information, it was going back to my company and starting the implementation process right away, because that's so important. You can have the best notes, you can take the best slides, but if you don't start to implement, a lot of times it gets away from you because it's busy. There's never enough hours in the day to get the work done. So you just have to start it like right away. You have to get it in motion.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's someone that's considering applying for our next cohort, what do you think they should be considering before applying? Or even if you have advice for getting prepared for, what would you share with them?
I would say make sure that if you have any team members at all, even if it's one person, to make sure that you give them a good foundation so that you can not only have time when you're with the cohort, but you need to make sure you have time to start to execute some of these things. So on your calendar, you have to actually block out time, say, hey, I'm going to be working on these things. So I got class at this time, but then I'm going to take this time to work on these things. And you don't want them floundering while you're not there because they're so used to you being there. So a lot of people coming into the program haven't learned how to not be working so much in the business. So think of what those core things that you can set up so that when you're not available, they still have what they need to continue to execute.
So when you think about what's next for you in terms of kind of building your business acumen, right? So you've gone through the cohort, you've had coaching. How are you going to stay on your toes when it comes to moving with forward thinking motion like you've been doing over these last couple of months?
I think it's important to always continue to be a part of something like this. This all sparked off when I was in the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. So when this opportunity came about, I was like, oh, this is great. This is great. And what it really reinforced for me is that you always need to, like they said, be in the rooms. You need to be in the rooms. That's your most valuable commodity. The best way you can spend your time is being in the room with other peers, as well as being in the rooms where the deals are made and transactions happen. So I think this gave you a bit of both, not only with your peers, but there are also deals being made.
Do you have any advice for relationship building? I think that sometimes people clam up when they hear the word networking. We always talk about our very first session with John Whaley around strategic planning, right? And he always says something along the lines of, you can have all the strategy, but if someone is not working on your behalf, or if they don't know to call you, then it won't matter, right? So and I want to ask you this in particular because you were very good about connecting with people. I don't think that there's a cohort member that doesn't know you or your voice. So what are some things that people who feel like this is just not their strong suit can do to foster those relationships?
To me, it gives you the biggest ROI. There, you can go out and spend all kinds of money on systems and programs and software, but it costs you nothing to show up as yourself. If you have a business, you believe in yourself, you believe in what you have. And what you need to remember is that people do business with people they like, people they know, and people they trust. So if they don't know you, if you're not out there where you're vibing and you're seeing who you connect with, same thing for you. You want to see who you connect with because it's not all about the money. It's about, who do I vibe with? Okay, let's see what we can do together. And so you have to get out of that space because no one can represent you better than you.
I love that. That is great advice. Thank you, Danielle. This has been amazing. Like I said, you were a wonderful contributor to our cohort, and we really appreciate having your energy. For those of you all who are wondering how you can become involved with Smart CEOs, I encourage you to visit TKC Smart CEOs to see our next program. And then for those of you all who are interested in connecting with Danielle, do you mind sharing how people can find you and your services online?
Absolutely. You can find us at Concierge Clinicians of Houston.com if you're looking for home care services. And I also have a platform on Instagram called The Nurse That Knows, which I educate folks on the tsunami of digital dementia that we're trying to make sure doesn't come for each and every one of us.
Wow, I love that. All right, guys, thank you for joining, and we will see you all on the other side.
Thanks for listening to Smart Chat. Smart CEOs, you are on your way. We hope this episode has been fantastic for you. We are excited that you were here. So here's the deal. Follow us on all of our social media, look up the Kyra Company, and join us on all of our private platforms. We invite you to join our private Facebook group at the Smart CEOs. Jump in, join the conversation, and learn more about what we can do every day to grow our business and grow our community. Thanks so much for joining us. We're excited that you were here. Once again, I'm Kyra Hardwick, and you know it. I was thrilled to bring the Smart Chat to you. Take care. Talk to you soon.